Val Afwalo Conway. I am also interested in anachronisms in the Church of Scientology. Due to LRH's written specifications, Scientologists use newspaper to clean glass, send telexes, and use a mimeograph to make more than 10 photocopies of any document. I wonder if you have any interesting anecdotes of anachronisms in Scientology daily life. Also, I have often thought that the Church of Scientology presence on the internet is very muted. Most of it is either church service and contact information, or else digital editions of their print magazines. I think they could enhance their interaction with the public with much slicker videos and multimedia and other attractants. Their social media presence is minimal at best, and the number of pro-Scientology websites are overwhelmed by the anti-websites. Do you think that the Church of Scientology has not really taken full advantage of the internet because LRH never envisioned it, so the church is stuck in a print world? You definitely nailed it that the Church of Scientology is very stuck in the past. And you're also right that one of the reasons for that, or the main reason for that, is because Hubbard is dead, and a lot of the policies and guidelines and whatnot for the church were written in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, and there is no way to update those. And of course, we didn't have so many things then that we have now. It's kind of interesting because one of the things that drove me to the internet, or seeing things on the internet when I was still in the Sea Org, was I was trying to figure out how we could use the internet more effectively for good promotion, right? To get the word out there about what a good thing Scientology was, because of course I used to think that it was a good thing. And I thought that if we flooded the internet with success stories and and real life gains and good news, that would be an effective counter to the critical websites, because I knew they existed. I just wasn't supposed to be reading them, right? And I for the most part, I didn't. I mean, I glanced at Tony Ortega's stuff every now and again, but I always went, Tony Ortega, what a jerk, and Mike Rinder, what an SP, and these horrible guys, right, who are now my friends. But I thought, I was trying to think of, why is it would frustrate me, because I would wonder, why is the church not doing more with the internet? It was clearly, being out in the real world, it was very, very clear that the internet was a big deal, and that everybody was on it, right? So why weren't we? And why weren't we more of a presence? And I had bought into the idea, of course, that, through all the events and everything, that we were doing great work all over the world. Right, you'd see these successes, and you'd see people talking about Scientology and how wonderful it was, and I would be like, why doesn't any of this get talked about more, And then after a little bit of fact checking on some of the stories, I came to find that some of the stories that we were hearing at the events weren't true, and I was like, oh, okay, and that's fed into the realization that we weren't everything we thought we were cracked up to be. So as far as anachronisms go, I can tell you one kind of humorous story that was when I was in management. We had to look at all the statistics of all the different organizations every week, every Thursday night when I was in church management. We stayed up all night long. Didn't go to bed until about 5, 6 in the morning. Because that was the beginning of the new week, every Thursday to Thursday. And so Thursday after 2, all of the organizations would send up all of their statistical information, and we would look at the graphs and see whether they were up or down, right, for all the various activities going on in each church location. And then we would send orders and direction based on whether they were up, down, sideways, and how they were trending, right? You would look at more than 1 or 2 weeks. You could see on a graph that it would go, mostly up or mostly down, or they were staying level, or there was nothing happening. It was all just goose eggs, and we would, evaluate what that church needed to do that week based on those statistics. So all of this was computerized quite some time ago, and so we had computers on our desks, and we could look at the graphs on the computers, and we could sort of see what was happening. Well, one guy from RTC, Hans Uli Stahli, walked in one night while we were doing this, and he was like, what is this? What are you people doing with all these electronic graphs, right? And we were like, we're doing our, stats. We're doing our end of the week thing. Like, what does it look like we're doing, sort of thing, right? We were all kind of like, what's he getting on about? And he goes, these graphs are supposed to be printed. You're supposed to plot them on paper, and you're supposed to look at them, compare one to the other on paper, And because of that, from that point forward, a whole system got put into place at West US Management where all of the stat books, because there were, 50 to 100 different graphs for each organization. So each church, like Albuquerque or Las Vegas or Seattle, had a whole book of statistics each week, right? And if you printed all the graphs, even if you printed, 3 or 4 to a page, it came out to be a little book of statistics, right? And so what had to be done was each of these stat books had to be printed for each church, and there were 34 of them in the Western United States, if you include the Sea Org churches. And all that paper had to get used every week, printing these stat books, at multiple copies of them, right? Because we were in management and we needed to have more than one copy. I think there were a total of maybe 3 or 4 copies printed. And this whole thing went into place this one week because this one guy walked in and said, Hubbard said that they're supposed to be printed, right? Not printed on a computer either. They used to be drawn out by hand, right? And then compared one graph to another, right? And because, of course, it's impossible to do this on a computer, right? So, there's no way you could show 2 graphs on the screen at the same time, even though the computer software actually was built to do exactly that. Even though we had it all on computer, we had to not use that, and we had to use these printed books. And this went on for years, and I tell you, we wasted more paper because of that. Printing all those books every week, week after week. It was ridiculous. And we all thought it was ridiculous. No, but none of us thought that was a good idea. And, but it was an RTC order because the guy who ordered it was, at the very top. And so we didn't have a choice. And that's life in the Sea Org and in Scientology.